Today, I've got two truly bizarre missing person cases for you. Both are unlike anything you've heard before. The second one, especially, is so strange that I'm sure many of you will end up sharing it with your friends later, because the ending is as shocking as it gets. But before we dive in, if you enjoy eerie, mysterious, and downright puzzling stories told in a narrative style, then you're in the right place. That's exactly what we do here, and we bring you a brand new story every single week. So, if that sounds like your thing, go ahead and absolutely wreck the like button. Like sneaking into someone's freezer and eating almost all their ice cream, leaving behind just that sad, thin layer at the bottom of the tub. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our weekly uploads. Alright, let's get into today's stories. It was just past 1 a.m. on August 27, 2000, when fisherman Sam Watts tried to steady himself on the slippery deck of a massive commercial fishing boat off the coast of Queensland, Australia. The sea had been calm only an hour earlier, but now a powerful storm had rolled in, bringing towering waves and howling winds. Sam glanced across the deck at his crewmate, Michael Edwards, who was clinging tightly to the mast as the vessel pitched violently. The rest of the crew had gone below deck to sleep, leaving Sam and Michael to secure the ship's gear before joining them. To make the work faster, the two split up, Sam heading toward the bow, Michael toward the stern, planning to meet in the middle once everything was tied down. Through the rain and darkness, they kept visual contact with each other, knowing how dangerous the situation was. But in the moment Sam ducked down to check a knot, a monstrous rogue wave slammed into the boat, nearly capsizing it. Sam was hurled toward the railing but managed to grab hold at the last second. When the vessel leveled again, he immediately looked back for Michael, only to see him swept off the deck and vanish into the raging sea. Sam shouted his name, but there was no response. He rushed below deck, waking the others. And within minutes, the crew was scouring the ocean with spotlights while the captain radioed for help. Soon, a police boat joined the search, tossing out life rings and calling for Michael. But the storm made it impossible. Hours dragged on, and by midday the following day, authorities reluctantly called off the search. The official conclusion: Michael had drowned. For the crew, it was a devastating blow. Just hours before, Michael had been joking with them, full of life, and now he was gone. But after grieving together, they faced a brutal decision. Should they abandon the fishing trip, or continue? The truth was harsh. These expeditions were expensive, and without a catch, the financial loss would cripple them. After a tense discussion, they decided to stay at sea. At the very least, they thought, Michael's body might surface, giving them a chance to bring him home to his family. That day, the catch was incredible. Giant 6-foot, 100-pound cod after cod. But no amount of success could lift the crew's spirits. They returned to port still mourning their lost friend, with no sign of him ever recovered. But just days later, in a fish processing factory, a worker sliced open one of those enormous cod. What they found inside stopped them cold. There, horrifyingly intact, was Michael's head, his face frozen in terror, eyes wide open, mouth agape, as if captured in his final scream. Investigators concluded that Michael likely survived the fall into the ocean, but was almost immediately attacked by sharks or crocodiles, common in those waters. During the feeding frenzy, his head was torn free, drifting until swallowed whole by a massive cod, the very same fish his crewmates had unknowingly hauled aboard the next day. Before I became a storyteller of the strange, I served in the military. And while my own experiences were wild, what stuck with me most were the chilling accounts from fellow service members. Soldiers are often stationed in remote, unforgiving places, and many of them describe encounters that defy explanation: lights rising out of the ocean in the middle of nowhere, shadowy figures moving on distant mountains where no people should be. These stories, though rarely told outside the military, form part of an unspoken folklore. That's exactly the idea behind Wartime Stories, a channel and podcast dedicated to sharing these unbelievable accounts. I've personally partnered with them, and new episodes drop every Monday. If you're fascinated by mysterious encounters from the front lines, definitely check it out. Now, let's move on to our second case. On the afternoon of July 13, 1994, a man regained consciousness in a roadside ditch. Disoriented and aching, he reached back to feel a painful lump on his head. His wrists were bruised as if bound, though he had no memory of how he got there, or even who he was. As he tried to make sense of it, an older man named Steve approached, pushing a shopping cart. Steve offered help, and the stranger, realizing he had nothing in his pockets but 23 cents and a comb, followed him to a homeless shelter. There, he gave himself a new name, Pat Brown, combining one of the random names echoing in his mind with the color of the shelter worker's desk. Pat hoped his memory would return overnight, but it didn't. The next day, he went to the police, politely explaining his bizarre situation. He had amnesia, couldn't recall his past, but three names, Pat, Joel, and Chris, kept repeating in his head. The officers were skeptical but checked missing persons reports. No match. The only clue they noticed was the callus on his ring finger, suggesting he had once worn a wedding band. Weeks passed. Nobody came forward. Eventually, Pat left for Jackson, Wyoming, where he found work at a newspaper despite having no ID. Odd skills began surfacing. He could operate an adding machine without looking, solve complex math instantly, and had deep knowledge of the stock market. He also felt compelled to attend Catholic Mass, where he knew the prayers by heart. And then came the recurring dream. A young boy calling him Dad, asking him to help Mom with Chris. Slowly, Pat pieced together an image of his former life. Likely a married man, a father of two, an accountant, and a devout Catholic. But who exactly was he? By 1998, 4 years after waking up in that ditch, Pat reached out to the TV show Unsolved Mysteries. His story aired nationwide, and that very night, in Indiana, a woman watching TV froze in shock. The man on screen wasn't Pat Brown. He was her relative, Carl Brodnick Jr. Carl hadn't been missing because of amnesia alone. He had vanished while under criminal investigation for embezzling tens of thousands from the advertising firm where he worked as an accountant. Police believed he might have been running from dangerous people to whom he owed money. His sudden disappearance, the unexplained head injury, and the missing cash only deepened the mystery. Whether Carl truly lost his memory or staged, it all remains unsolved. But one thing is certain. For 4 long years, he lived as a man who didn't know who he was, haunted only by fragments of a life that refused to let him go.